The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, thank you for joining us. We're going to wait just a minute or two here to make sure everybody has a chance to jump on and get settled, and then we'll get started. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for joining us for our BBB Flash webinar. I'm here with Don Hicks of Shaklee, and he is going to go ahead and introduce himself and his organization, and then he's going to give you a little bit of information about what a PEO can do for you. So here we go.
Thank you, Bridget. Good morning, everyone. As Bridget mentioned, my name is Don Hicks. I'm with Shaklee, and I've been doing HR workers' comp consulting for about 21 years. So I'm looking forward to talking with you today with respect to some ideas and some recommendations how to improve productivity for your organization, how to reduce your costs, and how to get more efficiencies with respect to human resources. So today I'm going to, over the next 15 or 20 minutes, I'm going to give you some ideas about who Shaklee is and how we partner with the BBB. I'm going to provide you an overview of what we call a PEO, or professional employer organization, as an alternative to you for running your business and potentially reducing your cost, with some recommendations. And I will love your feedback with respect to these topics. If there are other topics in the future that you want us to present on in regards to providing some value for your organization, feel free to provide that information, ask questions in the chat room. Open to that, and we'll open up a Q&A towards the end. So with that, we'll get started with respect to talking about who is Shaklee. Hold on one second. Let me figure out how to advance the slide. So who is Shaklee? Shaklee is, we have a strategic partnership with the BBB in regards to providing special programs and discounts for you being a BBB member. So Shaklee, just to give an idea of who we are, we're privately held, based out of Cincinnati. We have about 50,000 employers nationwide. So we have a lot of value that we bring to the table with respect to human resources solutions, which is why you joined the call today. If you look at us as an organization, about 700 employees, and we do have a local presence here in northeastern Ohio and in Cleveland. For example, I am in Cleveland. So we're very proud of the partnership we have with the BBB, in order to bring some special programs, some discounts, and ways that we can help run your business efficiently and reduce your cost. What do? We solve the areas with respect to human resources. We have some programs relative to workers' compensation. We are the TPA, or the third-party administrator for the BBB. So there's special programs and special discounts that you can get relative to workers' comp by being a BBB member. We do help companies also with safety and risk management, employee benefits, payroll, and payroll tax administration. Those are the 5 key fundamental areas that we help businesses with, and we help bring some value to you being a BBB member. Workers' comp is one of the most expensive things that employers have to deal with in the state of Ohio. Keeping employees safe, getting them back to work, dealing with the cost of employee benefits, and dealing with human resources are all areas that us as an organization that we see businesses really struggle with. So by being a BBB member and talking about some of these concepts today, hopefully you see some value in an alternative and again, helping run your organization. Professional Employer Organization, or PEO. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this concept or this business strategy, and that's what we wanted to talk about today. So if you hear me say the words or the acronym PEO, it stands for Professional Employer Organization. Here are the challenges that we see relative to employer challenges. Employers are really struggling with reviewing handbooks and making sure that they're updated. I see a lot of organizations where they have a handbook, but the ever-changing regulations on a federal and state standpoint sometimes make employee handbooks outdated, and there's some liability and some risk there. So having an updated handbook is something that we see companies having a challenge in. Staying up to date with state and federal regulations. The regulations are always changing. There's liability for organization when it comes to regulations, and being compliant and being able to manage that risk is a real challenge for employers. The third bullet point is knowing true labor costs. And true labor costs comes into the fact of your direct cost of what you're paying to run your business, and soft costs, the time spent on HR, time spent on workers' comp claims, time spent on federal regulations, and just knowing what your true labor costs and being able to control those costs year over year. One of the things I know that if you as an organization have employees that you're managing, there are issues there and there are costs there, and having a PEO, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, could help reduce your liability and reduce your cost accordingly. Employers are challenged with onboarding employees, managing the population, and using technology to help manage your environment. Maintaining permanent employee files, records, performance reviews is a real challenge. Not only knowing what the regulations are in keeping employee files, but just managing that data is a real challenge for employers. Dealing with workplace conflicts is an area that we see a lot of challenges with, of how to deal with workplace conflicts, how to reduce your liability as an employer if a conflict was to arise. Do you have the right policies and procedures in place in mitigating conflicts and handling those conflicts are areas that we see. Position descriptions and performance reviews is probably one of the top 2 or 3 things that I see is a real challenge for employers. Being able to align a job description and a position description to the goals and objectives of the organization, and being able to manage their employees and their population to those goals and objectives. It's a hard struggle to know what the best practices are, knowing what the benchmarks are, and how to come up with a job description to where it meets the needs of the employee and the employer. And that's again is a real challenge for companies. Wage and hour law compliance is again a real struggle. Minimum wage requirements are changing. Legislative requirements are changing on both the federal and state level, and being compliant in wage compliance, overtime rules, is a real task for employers. And the biggest one, probably the #1 challenge that I see employers dealing with, is managing unemployment claims and managing workers' comp claims. Workers' comp, as you know, in the state of Ohio, there's limited options when it comes to procuring workers' comp. And by you being a BBB member, there are some programs, by our partnership with the BBB, there are some programs that you can take advantage of to help lower your cost, control your workers' comp claims, get your employees back to work, do the right thing by your employees, and also alongside of workers' comp is unemployment claims, how to manage that process, how to mitigate your risk, and how to deal with that. So those are the top challenges that we see employers dealing with. Now, how do most companies handle HR? And if you look at these slides, this may resemble your organization. There's human resources that you have to deal with in managing employees, workers' comp, as we mentioned, safety programs and managing risk, managing the safety of your employees, employee benefits, payroll, and payroll taxes. Human resources sometimes is a challenge, not only from managing the day-to-day duties of human resources, but managing costs associated with that. In some organizations, they really struggle with human resources because it's so complicated, it's so complex, and sometimes human resources is not the core competency of an organization, so they really struggle with that. Payroll and payroll taxes, obviously payroll is required regardless of the type of job that an employee does. So if an employee works for you, you have to deal with paying those wages and paying the appropriate taxes as an organization. And a lot of times that is outsourced to a third party, and there's costs associated with that. About 60–70% of organizations outsource their payroll to a third party because it's so complex and because the tax laws are so complicated. And some of you may be already outsourcing your payroll processing to a third party, or some of you may be doing it in-house. Benefits administration, particularly for small to medium-sized businesses, is probably one of the top 2 costs that you have to deal with if you provide benefits to your organization. So the challenge that we see with benefits is not only the cost associated with offering medical benefits and offering some of the voluntary and ancillary benefits, but just how do you administer those programs? How do you administer open enrollment? How do you answer employee questions that may come up? You know, how do you have a competitive benefits package that will attract the right talent to your organization? How do you keep good employees by using benefits? And that's a real challenge for organizations. Safety, the idea around safety is to obviously prevent employees from getting hurt, but reducing the frequency and severity of claims to keep your workers' comp costs down. And again, the biggest challenge that we see for companies is workers' comp. It's required by law in the state of Ohio, as all of us know, and is one of the most expensive costs for employers in the state of Ohio. So if you look at this slide, there are many things that you may be doing today from some internally from human resources. You may be outsourcing your payroll processing. You may be using a third-party administrator or MCO for your workers' comp. You may be outsourcing some of your safety programs or trainings to an outside vendor. You may be using a broker for managing your benefits. Obviously, you're going through a carrier for medical costs and so forth. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to managing employees and managing HR. And an alternative is to take a look at a PEO, professional employer organization, and outsource some of those things to a PEO. Some of the benefits of outsourcing some of these to a PEO is, number one, being able to just do what you're doing today better, using a company that you can tap into and use their resources to potentially reduce your workers' comp, take advantage of some of the safety programs that they have available. Most PEOs, they have a benefits administration department where you can tap into technology, you can tap into better benefit rates by using their pool of benefits. They typically, like we do, they offer payroll processing, and obviously they offer human resources consulting when it comes to handbooks and policies and procedures and making sure that you are compliant. And if something were to happen where you have a difficult termination, if you have a difficult situation you're dealing with from a human resources standpoint, PEOs are there to step in and help you with those processes. So a PEO is a great idea to take the things that you're doing today and just do it better, do it more efficiently, and potentially reduce your cost as it relates to managing your organization. PEOs, it helps with maximizing productivity, maximizing profitability when it comes to, for example, on a profitability standpoint, is how do I reduce my workers' comp premiums? How do I make sure that if I have risk associated with an unemployment claim, for example, how do I make sure that I keep those costs down? A PEO can help reduce the time spent on administrative HR because now you are leveraging the expertise that a PEO can provide in helping outsource some of those functionalities to a PEO, and they will help you with some of those transactional day-to-day HR activities. The biggest piece is reducing employer-related liability. As an employer today, you have a tremendous amount of liability in running your organization. You have liability related to workers' comp claims. You have liability with respect to regulations, both on the federal and state level. You have liability if there's a difficult termination that you have to deal with. And that liability brings cost. And there's costs associated with having to deal with some of these things. So being able to leverage a PEO, whether it's a Shaklee PEO or some other PEO, that really can help take the liability off of your plate. It provides an opportunity for you to potentially look at reducing your costs, and you can tap into the expertise and the technology that a PEO can bring to you. And all of that over time will ultimately make you more profitable and lower your overall cost. Partnering with the PEO, and as the last point on the slide, is taking a look at the things that you're already doing, things that you're already paying for, things that you may be using a third party for, and just simply do it better. And in an integrated fashion, using and partnering with a PEO. For example, Shaklee, our PEO, in working with you, particularly as a BBB member, we share in the liability of being an employer while you maintain 100% direction and control of your business, and you can focus on generating revenue for your organization. I'll end with this and open it up to questions, but just 5 recommendations based on my experience that I would leave you with. As you consider this strategy, this business strategy, as maybe you consider a PEO and evaluating a PEO for your organization, 5 recommendations I will leave you with. Really understand your true labor costs. And true labor costs, again, is direct cost. Direct costs are those costs that you're paying today to a third party. You're getting an invoice every month, or you're getting an invoice every pay period, and knowing those true labor costs. But also know your soft costs, the time you spend on HR, the time you spend on managing an unemployment claim, the time you may spend with a DOL audit or an OSHA audit. Those type of things, I would encourage you to take a look at those costs and maybe look at a PEO to help partner with you and identify areas of exposure and risk that you may have. The way that a PEO can do that, and the way Shaklee can do that in partnership with the BBB, is to do an HR assessment. An HR assessment is a process where you go through and say, okay, what are my true labor costs? What are my areas of exposure? What is my liability? That's number 1. Number 2, as a recommendation, is find ways that you consolidate the vendors that you may be managing today. Consolidating your vendors under one can create efficiencies and can create a savings potential through an integrated business model such as a PEO. Number 3 is really take a hard look at your workers' comp program and find ways that you can share the risk with a company like Shaklee, with a PEO, share the risk and lower your premiums. Again, with the BBB membership and with the partnership with Shaklee, there are special programs available to you where we can take a look at your current workers' comp program, we can take a look at your premiums, we can do a holistic review of your workers' comp program to see if there are discounts that are available to you and sharing of the risk related to workers' comp claims. So number 3, just to wrap that one up, is evaluate your entire workers' comp program and leverage the savings potentials that you have by being a BBB member. Number 4, implement a comprehensive and ongoing safety program. And be very proactive with regards to safety and preventing exposure before it happens. One of the biggest benefits of being with a PEO is taking an organization that may be reactive and acting to things after they happen, versus a PEO can make you be, help you be proactive, preventing exposure before it happens, preventing lawsuits before they happen, preventing workers' comp claims and injuries before they happen, and using a partner through a PEO or professional employer organization can help you be proactive, prevent things before they happen, and again, that all lowers your overall liability. So with that, I want to thank you. Shaklee, as we mentioned, we do provide the expertise, the technology to help lower your costs, maximize your productivity through the things that we talked about today, reduce your liability, and ultimately increase your profitability. That's what we're trying to get to. So thank you for your time today. I will open it up for questions. As a next step, if you would like an HR assessment done for your organization just to see if this is a good fit for you to evaluate, to see if this is a good fit for you to consider, I tell all of my folks that I encounter as I do these seminars and webinars, if anything, walk away with finding a process to understand your true labor costs and just see if a PEO or professional employer organization is the right fit for you guys, and going through an HR assessment and doing some of that financial analysis is something we can definitely do and definitely help you with. Whether it's a PEO through Shaklee or any other PEO is a recommendation I would highly, highly recommend for you. The PEO industry has been around for about 35, 36 years now. So it is a business strategy that is done across the country. My contact information is there at the bottom of the slide. If you have any questions, reach out to me. As I mentioned, we do have a special partnership with the BBB. So if you have any questions, feel free to go through them as well, and we'll help you out as much as we can. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that you have. You can put them in the chat room, and I'll turn it over to Bridget to see if we have any questions.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions typed in here yet. If you do have a question and you wanted to either send it right there to Don at his contact information, if you don't have that, you can go ahead and follow the email blast and respond to that, the one that was sent out for you to register. Other than that, you can always get in touch with me and I'll get you in touch with him. And as he had mentioned earlier, he has some other topics about human resources that he's more than happy to talk about. But if you guys have some suggestions or any topics that you have of interest, you can go ahead and send those over to us, and we'll see if we can't get a webinar sometime in the future about one of those topics. So if I don't see any questions here right now, we'll go ahead and let you guys go get on with your busy day. Thank you very much for joining us for our BBB Flash webinar, and keep an eye out in your email for the next one.